Everyone dies, but few return to tell the tale. Welcome to The Day I Died, where survivors share their extraordinary experiences from the other side.
My name is Thomas Mitchell, and on a quiet Sunday evening in December 2019, I died in my living room in Silver Spring, Maryland. At least, that's what the doctors later told me technically happened. What I experienced in those moments between life and death wasn't the tunnel of light that many people describe, but something far more profound, a vivid revelation of how our lives touch others in ways we never fully understand. I work as an intelligence analyst at a federal agency in D.C., a job that requires focus, precision, and long hours. My wife Sarah had traveled to Atlanta to spend an extended Thanksgiving with her family, while I returned home earlier to handle year-end reports that couldn't wait. The evening of December 8th felt ordinary. I had just finished a simple dinner of leftover pasta and was loading the dishwasher, a mundane task I'd done thousands of times before. As I bent down to place a plate on the bottom rack, something changed. The pressure in my chest was sudden and intense, like someone had wrapped a steel band around my ribs and was slowly tightening it. My first thought was asthma. I'd had it since childhood and kept an inhaler nearby. But this felt different. The dizziness came in waves, and the room seemed to tilt sideways. I made my way to the living room, thinking I just needed to sit down for a moment. As I turned to lower myself onto the couch, the world went dark. What happened next defies easy explanation. I didn't see a tunnel or feel myself floating above my body. Instead, I found myself in what I can only describe as a vast space filled with points of light. Not stars exactly, but more like living particles of luminescence. I was suspended there, rotating slowly, counterclockwise, as if suspended in some cosmic mobile. The lights weren't random. They were organized in concentric rings around me, each ring representing different levels of connection to my life. Closest to me were the brightest lights, and I knew immediately they were my family members who had passed on. My father, who died of a heart attack when I was in college. My grandparents, Grandpa Mike, who taught me to fish. Grandma Rose, who always smelled of fresh bread and coffee. My Uncle James, who never returned from Vietnam. But they weren't just present. They were communicating. Each light contained stories, memories, and revelations about how my life had intersected with theirs. I heard my father's voice telling me about the pride he felt watching me graduate, even though he wasn't physically there. I felt my grandmother's joy at how I'd kept her recipe for pierogi alive, making them every Christmas just as she had taught me. The second ring held friends who had passed, childhood buddies, college roommates, colleagues. Mark, who died too young in a car accident our senior year. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Phillips, who'd served with me before cancer took her. Each light held not just memories of our direct interactions, but showed me how those interactions had rippled outward, affecting decisions and moments I'd never known about. The outer rings were fascinating. People I'd barely known or met only briefly, yet whose lives had been touched by my actions in ways I'd never realized. The barista I'd helped when her car broke down in a snowstorm. She'd gone on to start a charity inspired by that random act of kindness. The student I'd mentored during a brief teaching stint, who now worked in intelligence himself, carrying forward lessons I'd forgotten giving. Most remarkably, I could perceive how these connections branched outward exponentially, how helping one person had led them to help others, creating a vast web of influence I'd never imagined. It wasn't all positive. I also saw moments where my actions had caused pain or disappointment, creating ripples of hurt I'd been unaware of. But there was no judgment in these revelations, only truth and understanding. The experience was overwhelming, yet completely clear. Time seemed meaningless. It could have been seconds or centuries. Each light spoke simultaneously, yet I could understand every individual story, every connection, every consequence. It was as if my consciousness had expanded to encompass this entire network of interconnected lives. I felt no fear, no anxiety about death. There was instead a profound sense of rightness, of being exactly where I needed to be, witnessing something I needed to understand. The connections between all these lives seemed to pulse with purpose, showing me that what matters most isn't our individual achievements, but the way we touch others' lives, often without realizing it. Then everything changed. A light brighter than all the others appeared, not just bright, but all-encompassing, like a sun that somehow didn't blind. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere spoke with undeniable authority. Not yet. Go back. Call 911. The command was instantly echoed by every point of light around me, creating a chorus of voices all insisting, "Call 911." The urgency was clear, yet there was also something reassuring in it. This wasn't a rejection, but a return with purpose. I came back to consciousness half sprawled across my couch, my body feeling impossibly heavy and uncooperative. The simple act of reaching for my phone on the coffee table became a monumental task. My fingers felt thick and clumsy as I tried to dial, but the memory of those voices urging me on gave me the strength to persist. When I finally connected with 911, I could barely speak. "Can't breathe? Asthma attack," I managed to gasp out, though I knew now this was something far more serious. The dispatcher kept me on the line, her calm voice anchoring me to consciousness until the paramedics arrived. Everything after that became a blur of urgent activity. The paramedics quickly realized this was no ordinary asthma attack. I remember being strapped to a backboard, the ceiling of the ambulance moving above me, the bright lights of the emergency room. The CT scan revealed what I had really experienced, a massive saddle pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that had lodged between my lungs, nearly ending my life. I was airlifted to George Washington University Hospital, where I spent 4 days in intensive care. For the first 3 days, I wasn't allowed to move, eat, or even speak unnecessarily. The clot was so precarious that any sudden movement could have dislodged it, sending it to my brain or heart. I had plenty of time to think about what I'd experienced. The medical staff later told me that people rarely survive saddle pulmonary embolisms, especially when alone. The fact that I regained consciousness long enough to call for help was, in their view, remarkable. They didn't know about the voices that had sent me back, about the vision that had shown me how much unfinished business I had in this world. Recovery was slow, but transformative. Sarah flew back from Atlanta immediately, and during those long hours in the ICU, we had conversations we'd been putting off for years. The experience had shown me how often I'd prioritized work over relationship, achievement over connection. I saw now how many moments I'd missed while chasing the next career milestone. In the months that followed, I made changes. I reduced my hours at work, prioritizing family time over extra projects. I reached out to old friends I'd lost touch with, understanding now how valuable these connections truly are. I started volunteering at a local veterans center, knowing that each interaction has the potential to create positive ripples I might never see. Most importantly, I began sharing my story. Not everyone believes in near-death experiences, and I understand their skepticism. But I know what I experienced in those moments between life and death. I saw how every life touches countless others, how our smallest actions can have far-reaching consequences we never imagine. I still don't know exactly why I was sent back. Perhaps there are more ripples I'm meant to create, more lives I'm meant to touch. What I do know is that I was given a precious gift, not just a second chance at life, but a deeper understanding of what makes life meaningful. Today, when people ask me about my experience, I tell them that death isn't what we should fear. What we should fear is reaching the end of our lives without having recognized the beautiful web of connections we're part of, without having understood how our actions affect others in ways we may never see. I still work in intelligence, still analyze patterns and connections for a living. But now I understand that the most important patterns aren't found in data or reports. They're found in the countless ways our lives intersect and influence each other, creating a tapestry more complex and beautiful than anything we can imagine. Sometimes at night, I close my eyes and try to remember those points of light, each one representing a life touched by my own. It reminds me that every day is an opportunity to create new connections, to send out new ripples of positive influence into the world. Perhaps that's why I was sent back, not for any one great purpose, but for all the small moments of connection that make life truly meaningful.
Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey. We hope Thomas's story has brought you comfort, understanding, or perhaps validation of your own experiences. These stories remind us that there may be more to our existence than we can see, and that love truly connects us all. If you'd like to hear more extraordinary stories like this one, please follow The Day I Died. And if this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like the video to help others find these powerful stories too. Until next time, remember that every story shared here started with an ending, but became something more.